The solar system had settled into a quiet rhythm once more. The Dominion fleet had retreated, nursing damaged ships and wounded pride, leaving behind a galaxy stunned by humanity's resolve. Earth and its allies now stood not only as defenders but as examples. Loyalty had proven stronger than fear, courage more potent than threats, and kindness more enduring than conquest. Captain Rethkar Vel walked among the repaired Valorian fleet at Luna Base. Every ship gleamed under the soft lights of the hangar, engines humming with readiness. The refugees who had once arrived in desperation now moved with purpose, working beside humans to strengthen their collective defenses. Your people, Rethkar began, struggling to find words. They fight with hearts that cannot be broken. Admiral Cole Ramirez, standing nearby, nodded. Hearts, yes, and trust. That is what makes the difference. A fleet is not only machines and energy, it is people. People united by loyalty. Rethkar glanced around at humans tending to injured Valorians, teaching young pilots and coordinating supplies. Even the smallest acts of care were as important as the largest strategies. I have never seen such strength before, he thought. Not in any empire, not in any war. On Earth, celebrations quietly began. There was no excessive fanfare, no boasting. The victory was not about destruction. It was about survival, trust, and shared purpose. Families reunited with those who had been stationed on lunar and Martian bases. Children hugged Valorian friends they had never imagined meeting. Scientists returned to their studies and engineers to their designs, all enriched by collaboration. Ambassador Liara Chen stood on a balcony in Geneva, watching the city lights twinkle beneath her. The world had survived because of loyalty and unity. Her mind traveled to the Dominion, now retreating into distant shadows, and she knew that Earth's example would resonate across the galaxy. When Rethkar approached, she smiled. The stars will remember what happened here, he said quietly. They will, she replied. And not just the Dominion. Other species will see that loyalty is stronger than fear. That helping others is never weakness. That kindness can be the most powerful force in the universe. Life continued, yet the bond between humans and Valorians deepened. Pilots trained together, engineers shared knowledge freely, and diplomats forged new channels of communication. Rethkar noticed something remarkable. Humans did not see Valorians as outsiders or strangers. They treated them as equals, partners in a shared destiny. One day, a young Valorian girl, Tira, approached a human teacher, holding a small model of a spacecraft. "Will we always be together?" she asked softly. The teacher knelt to her level. "We will stand by each other, Tira, just as Earth stood by you when you needed it most. That is the promise of loyalty." Tira smiled. "Like a chain?" "Exactly," the teacher said. "A chain that grows stronger the more links we add." Rethkar, standing nearby, watched the exchange and felt a quiet pride. The chain of loyalty was no longer human alone. It was shared, woven across worlds. In the months that followed, humanity's actions became a beacon in the galaxy. Former colonies of the Dominion began to resist oppression, inspired by the courage of a single planet that had refused to abandon those who trusted it. Traders, explorers, and diplomats spoke of Earth not as a military power, but as a moral force, one whose actions defied expectation and rewrote the rules of interstellar relations. Rethkar found himself traveling between bases, observing these changes firsthand. Valorian engineers, once wary and uncertain, now collaborated with human teams on joint projects that would have been unthinkable before. Communication networks were upgraded, space stations fortified, and scientific research accelerated. Every initiative carried the imprint of trust earned and loyalty honored. Yet, humanity's greatest strength lay not in machinery or technology, but in the simple, enduring acts of care. On Mars, a human doctor helped a Valorian child recover from minor injuries sustained during the battle. On Luna Base, engineers repaired a spacecraft while the crew shared meals and laughter with their neighbors. Even children participated, planting small trees in biodomes as symbols of unity and hope. Each action was small, yet collectively they became a force the galaxy could not ignore. Rethkar often reflected on these moments. He had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, many through fear or intimidation. Yet humanity, he realized, had achieved more than survival. They had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of strength itself. One evening, under the soft glow of Luna's artificial sky, Rethkar stood with Admiral Ramirez and Liara Chen. Across the observation deck, human and Valorian pilots watched training simulations, their focus unwavering. "The Dominion will remember this," Rethkar said. "They will not forget," Liara shook her head. "Perhaps they will, or perhaps they will. But that does not matter. What matters is what we choose to do. We acted not for fear, not for revenge, but because it was right." Ramirez added, "And right is remembered longer than fear. The galaxy will see that. The stars themselves will remember." Rethkar looked at Earth, small and radiant below, and understood fully. Loyalty, compassion, and courage were more than virtues, they were power. And humanity wielded it effortlessly. Across the galaxy, news of Earth's actions spread. Formerly neutral systems began to reconsider alliances. Other species reached out with offers of cooperation, inspired by a civilization that had stood firm not for conquest, but for principle. The Dominion, though still vast and dangerous, had encountered a force it could not calculate, a force that refused to bow, refused to abandon friends, and refused to compromise its honor. Rethkar realized something profound. Humans had not only saved his people, they had reshaped the expectations of every species that watched, and in doing so they had taught a lesson that would endure for generations. Loyalty, when honored, could echo across time and space. On Earth, simple acts continued. Families opened homes for Valorian refugees, children shared toys and stories, and ordinary citizens volunteered in ways large and small. Leaders planned for the future, but their actions were grounded in the principle that had carried them through the crisis: stand by those who trust you. Rethkar often walked through the cities and bases, observing quietly. Humans did not boast about their victory. They did not gloat. Their pride was quiet, steady, and dignified. It was a reflection of their belief in something greater than themselves, something he had not fully understood until now. One afternoon, as he walked through a verdant park on Mars Station, Rethkar encountered a young human boy building a small spacecraft from scraps. "Why do you do this?" Rethkar asked. The boy looked up, eyes bright. "Because one day someone might need it. Someone might need help, just like we did." Rethkar smiled. "You understand loyalty already," the boy nodded. "It's not about fear or winning. It's about standing by people you care about." Rethkar felt a warmth spread through him. This was the future, the promise carried forward by the youngest generation. Humanity's lesson was no longer confined to Earth. It would live in the hearts of every being they touched. As years passed, Earth and its allies grew stronger, not through aggression, but through unity. Valorian fleets became permanent partners in defense. Scientific discoveries flourished across planets and moons, and every action, from the smallest gesture of kindness to the grandest battle plan, reflected the principle that had saved them all: loyalty honored is loyalty repaid. Rethkar, now fully integrated into this new alliance, often reflected on the journey. He remembered the fear, the desperation, the uncertainty that had brought the Valorians to Earth. And he remembered the moment humans had chosen to help, without hesitation, without expectation, without fear. That moment had changed everything. On Luna Base, as the sun rose over Earth and reflected across the surface of Mars, Rethkar stood with Liara Chen and Admiral Ramirez one final time. "The galaxy will remember this day," Rethkar said. Liara smiled. "The galaxy may forget names, fleets, and battles, but it will never forget what loyalty can do. And the stars will remember." Ramirez nodded. "And when the stars remember, every species that values honor, trust, and loyalty will know what it means to stand by those who stand by them." Rethkar looked at the young Valorian and human pilots training below. He realized the lesson would continue, passed from one generation to the next. Humanity's actions had created more than victory. They had created an enduring legacy. The Dominion remained a threat, distant and powerful. Yet even they, somewhere in the void of space, could not ignore the lesson Earth had taught. A people united by loyalty, courage, and compassion could overcome fear, defy expectation, and reshape the galaxy. Rethkar Vel, once a refugee, now stood as a witness to history. He had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, but nothing had prepared him for the quiet, unstoppable strength of humanity. Their loyalty had not only saved lives, it had rewritten what it meant to be powerful. And so as the stars shimmered above, he understood fully. The galaxy would never forget the people of Earth. They had kept their promise. They had honored loyalty, and in doing so, they had changed the universe. The Grand Archive of the Galactic Union was a quiet place. It floated in the endless dark between stars, a shining ring of silver where history itself slept. Every civilization that joined the Union sent its records there. Victories, failures, discoveries, and dreams. Inside the archive's Hall of Memory, a young alien historian named Ral 10 worked among tall shelves of glowing data crystals. His species, the Valari, were known for their patience and love of knowledge. Ral 10's eyes shimmered softly as he scrolled through ancient battle reports. He was searching for lost details of the Union's early wars long before peace spread across the galaxy. But then, something unexpected caught his attention. A small, dusty crystal, unmarked and nearly forgotten, blinked weakly in the corner of his console. Curious, he pulled it from the slot and read the title on its surface. Battle of Yeltra's Rim, Year 4273, Unknown Human Involvement. He frowned. Humans? Ral 10 had studied thousands of historical events, but very few mentioned the species called humans of Earth. They were a mystery to most modern civilizations, quiet, distant, and rarely involved in galactic affairs. He activated the crystal. A soft projection appeared in the air as an old recording filled with static. Slowly, the image cleared, showing a view of a battlefield in space. Burning ships drifted among shattered moons. A voice echoed through the recording, translated into Galactic Common. This is Captain Aisha Morel of the Terran Defense Force. Saralon evacuation complete. Holding the line. Then silence. Ral 10 leaned closer, his heart quickening. The file contained coordinates, troop records, and a single summary note. Human fleet of 22 ships engaged unknown invaders to protect Saralon civilians. 95% losses. Invaders repelled. No further human contact recorded. He whispered the words softly. They fought. For strangers, the Saralons were a peaceful, ocean-born race. In the ancient records, they had almost been wiped out by a pirate empire centuries before joining the Union. But no report ever mentioned humans in that story. How could this have been hidden? Ral 10's mentor, Archivist Velmora, noticed his expression. Still chasing old ghosts, Ral 10? She asked kindly. He turned the hologram toward her. Look, a Terran fleet saved the Saralons, and they never stayed to claim reward or recognition. Velmora's eyes flickered. Humans. Always unpredictable. They vanished from most Union politics long ago. Some say they prefer to live quietly on their homeworld, avoiding the chaos of the stars. But this, Ral 10 said, pointing at the file, this is not quiet. This is sacrifice, for a people they did not even know. Velmora smiled faintly. Perhaps they believed it was the right thing to do. You may learn something from them, young one. But be careful. The Terrans guard their past closely. Ral 10 nodded, but his curiosity burned brighter. He decided to travel to SciFi-Prime, the world humanity once defended. He wanted to see if the Saralons remembered this forgotten act of loyalty. The journey took 4 standard weeks. His ship, the Silver Trace, glided through starlight until SciFi-Prime appeared, a blue-green world wrapped in silver clouds. The moment he entered orbit, he was welcomed by serene transmissions and soft choral music. The Saralons were a graceful species, resembling aquatic beings with shimmering scales that reflected light like water. When Ral 10 landed, he was greeted by High Speaker Enilara, who led him to a wide plaza near the ocean. At its center stood a tall structure made of white stone and glowing coral, a monument. Carved on it were symbols in Old Terran script. Ral 10 translated them slowly, to those who stood for us when none else would. Humanity, the stars remember your kindness. He felt a wave of awe. The monument wasn't just a symbol. It was a promise made eternal. Around it, Saralon citizens placed fresh shells, flowers, and glowing orbs of water, offerings of respect. You still honor them? Ral 10 asked quietly. Enilara nodded. Every year on the day of the battle, we send a signal toward the Sol system, Earth's home. We simply say, we remember. Ral 10 was silent for a long time. The air smelled of salt and memory. Finally, he asked, do they ever answer? The High Speaker smiled gently. No reply. But we believe they hear us. The humans do not forget their promises even when the galaxy does. Her words stayed in his mind as he watched the waves crash softly against the monument. He wondered what kind of people would give so much, ask for nothing, and then disappear. That night, as the twin moons rose, Ral-10 sat by the sea reviewing the archived footage again. The human voice from the battle recording echoed faintly through the air. "We will hold the line. Get them to safety." The tone was steady, fearless, and deeply human. Ral-10 whispered, "Why would anyone fight so hard for others?" A calm voice answered behind him. "Because to them, loyalty isn't a word. It's a way of life." Startled, he turned around. A tall woman stood near the shore wearing a dark uniform with a simple silver badge, the insignia of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. She smiled softly. "Ambassador Lynn Adebayo, Earth's representative to the Union." Ral-10 stood quickly, bowing respectfully. "Ambassador, I didn't know humans still visited Sarala." "We come quietly," Lynn said, looking at the monument. "We have our reasons." Ral-10 hesitated, then asked, "Why did your people save them? The Saralans had no weapons, no trade routes, no strategic value. You gained nothing." Lynn looked up at the stars, her eyes reflecting them like tiny lights. "Perhaps we gained something you can't measure. Trust. You see, when humanity promises to stand by someone, we mean it. Even if the galaxy stops watching." Her tone was peaceful but carried a weight of certainty. Ral-10 nodded slowly. "Still, most species only act when there is reward." "How can loyalty alone drive such action?" Lynn smiled faintly. "Because loyalty is more than repayment. It's belief. When someone stands with us in need, we remember. When someone harms those under our protection, we remember that too. Humans have long memories, Mr. Ral-10, and longer hearts." He wrote down every word. Before leaving, Lynn placed her hand on the monument's base and whispered, "To those who gave everything, we still remember." Then she turned to him again. "History forgets easily, but people don't. Not on Earth." Ral-10 watched her walk away toward the sea, her figure fading into the mist. He could not explain it, but he felt a quiet strength in her presence, as if the entire weight of humanity's spirit stood behind her in silence. Later that night, he sent a report back to the Galactic Union Archive. He titled it simply, "The Forgotten Battle, Human Loyalty in the Saralan Rescue." But something strange happened as soon as he sent it. The transmission flickered, delayed by a coded interference. A message appeared on his console, written in an old Terran style. "Inquiry received. Further contact not advised." He blinked in confusion. "Who sent this?" he asked aloud. The ship's system replied, "Source unidentified. Transmission encrypted with Terran signature." Ral-10 felt a chill, though there was no fear, only wonder. The humans were watching. He leaned back in his chair, looking through the viewport as Sarala's oceans reflected the stars. Somewhere far beyond those lights, the people of Earth still remembered a promise made centuries ago. And perhaps, he thought, one day the galaxy would learn what true loyalty meant. The waves whispered against the shore, repeating the same silent truth the Saralans spoke each year. We remember. The morning sun of SciFi-Prime rose over a quiet ocean. Its twin reflections painted the surface with gold and silver light. Ral-10 stood near the monument of the silent promise, watching the gentle waves roll across the sand. The world seemed peaceful, almost unaware of how close it had once come to destruction. But peace always carried questions. He still thought about the message that had appeared on his console the night before. Inquiry received. Further contact not advised. It was polite but unsettling. It meant someone somewhere on Earth knew he was asking questions. Yet curiosity was in his nature. He could not let go of a mystery once it had started whispering to him. Later that day, Ral-10 met Ambassador Lynn Adebayo again at the Saralan Council's guest hall. The room was bright, decorated with soft shells that glowed in the light. The Saralan leaders sat around a circular table filled with holographic displays of ocean currents and trade routes. When Ral-10 entered, the High Speaker smiled. "Ah, the historian returns. Have you rested well, traveler?" Ral-10 bowed slightly. "Yes, High Speaker. But I still wish to understand why your people never joined the Union earlier. The records show you waited 2 centuries after your rescue." The council members exchanged looks. Then the High Speaker answered, "We waited because we were waiting for them." She turned her gaze toward Lynn. "The humans. Lynn's calm face didn't change, but her eyes grew softer. They didn't need to wait, she said gently. We never asked for repayment. Still, Anilara replied, we owed a debt of life. And a Saralan never forgets a debt of the heart. Ralten's eyes widened. So your two peoples stayed in contact? Lynn shook her head. Not directly. We stayed silent, as your archives say. But silence doesn't mean distance. Humanity watches, listens, waits. We simply do not interfere unless we must. Ralten frowned slightly. Why wait? Lynn folded her hands on the table. Because loyalty isn't a contract, Mr. Ralten. It's a promise that lives in time. When someone trusts you, you don't just save them once. You protect what they mean, their future, their hope, their children. Her words echoed through the chamber. Even the gentle Saralan waves outside seemed to pause. Ralten felt something shift inside him. In most galactic cultures, alliances were temporary. Agreements lasted as long as both sides found profit. But humans, they saw loyalty differently, not as trade, but as truth. The High Speaker nodded. Every year we send our message as we remember. And though Earth never replied, we know they hear it. Lynn smiled faintly. You're right. We do. After the meeting, Lynn invited Ralten for a walk near the ocean cliffs. The air was filled with the sound of seabirds and the smell of salt. They walked in silence for a while until Lynn stopped near a rocky ridge. She looked at the horizon. You know, Mr. Ralten, the Union often forgets how humanity came to space. We were never the strongest or the oldest race. We didn't have powerful weapons or ancient knowledge. But we learned one thing. Survival means standing together. It means trust. Ralten tilted his head. And you built your society on that? On loyalty, Lynn said simply. It started small. Between families, then nations, then worlds. Now it reaches the stars. When a human promises loyalty, it is like planting a seed that never dies. Ralten smiled slightly. That is beautiful. But does the galaxy understand it? Lynn's expression turned thoughtful. No, not yet. Some see it as weakness. They believe compassion makes us soft. But they forget that loyalty gives us strength. Strength that no weapon can copy. Her communicator beeped quietly. She looked down, her eyes narrowing slightly. I must return to the embassy soon. There are new reports. What kind of reports? Ralten asked. Lynn hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. Disturbing ones. Someone has been intercepting the Saralan signal, the one you call We Remember. It's being analyzed by unknown parties. Ralten frowned. Who would do that? It's just a message of gratitude. Lynn nodded slowly. To us, yes. But not everyone values loyalty. Some see it as an opportunity. That night, the skies above SciFi-Prime shimmered with auroras. A natural phenomenon, the locals said. But among the lights, Ralten's scanners picked up something strange. Faint energy readings, like the shadow of a hidden fleet far out in the system. He recorded the data, intending to share it with Lynn. But before he could, his ship received another coded message, this time different. The encryption was not Terran. It was from the Galactic Union Security Bureau. Cease current investigation into Terran Saralan event. Archive materials classified by High Command. Ralten's eyes widened. Classified? But this is history. He didn't understand why the Union would hide something about a heroic act. Humans had saved lives that should have been celebrated, not buried. He spent hours reviewing the data, linking old records, and noticed something alarming. This wasn't the first time humanity had stepped in to protect others without acknowledgement. There were patterns. Small, scattered reports of Terran ships appearing briefly during disasters, then vanishing. It was as if Earth maintained a secret network of guardians, silent watchers keeping old promises alive. The next morning, Ralten found Lynn again, standing by the ocean. She seemed different now, more serious. You've seen it, haven't you? She asked softly. He nodded. The transmissions, the disappearances, the Union interference, on what does it all mean? Lynn looked toward the sky. It means loyalty has enemies, Mr. Ralten, and not everyone in the galaxy is comfortable with the people who stand by others with no demand for reward. Enemies? He repeated. She turned to him. Yes, the Dravic Dominion. They don't believe in friendship or loyalty. To them, everything has a price. They've been watching the Saralan signal for years, waiting for a reason to act. Ralten's chest tightened. Are you saying they plan to attack? Perhaps, Lynn said calmly. They think the Saralons are under our protection. They want to test that. Ral 10 looked alarmed. Then we must warn the Union. Lynn smiled sadly. The Union will debate for months before deciding to move a single ship. That's their way. He stared at her, confused. Then what will Earth do? Lynn's expression softened, but her words were steady. We'll do what we always do. We'll remember our promises. For the next few days, the air on SciFi-Prime grew tense. Strange signals appeared at the edge of the system. Brief, silent pings that vanished before they could be traced. The Saralons noticed it too, whispering in worry. Ral 10 stayed in touch with Lynn, who seemed calm despite everything. One night he found her by the monument again, placing a small silver coin at its base. What is that? He asked. She smiled. An old Terran tradition. We place coins for those we remember. Every coin means someone's promise is still alive. Ral 10 looked at the waves. And if danger comes? Then we stand, she said softly. Like we did before. Her tone was gentle but unshakable, like someone speaking a truth older than the stars. Later that night, the Saralan signal station began its yearly broadcast. The technicians prepared the encoded message, simple words sent toward Sol. We remember. Ral 10 watched the transmission leave the planet as a faint beam of light. It stretched across the dark sky, carrying a message of gratitude through time and space. But somewhere beyond the outer moons, hidden ships received it too. Their captains, belonging to the Dravic Dominion, smiled coldly as they marked the signal's source. The lead ship sent out its own coded pulse. One word: advance. Far below, unaware of what was coming, Ral 10 looked toward the stars, his mind full of questions and his heart full of quiet admiration. He turned to Lynn, who stood beside him, her face calm but her eyes filled with something deeper. A readiness, a memory. Do you think your people will answer the Saralan message this time? He asked softly. Lynn looked up at the stars and replied, They already have. You just haven't seen it yet. Her voice carried a quiet certainty that made him believe her even though he didn't understand why. As the night deepened, the sea shimmered with reflected starlight. Somewhere beyond that sky, unseen by most, an ancient Terran beacon flickered to life. Its old code pulsed softly into the void. Loyalty Call Protocol 9, active. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but something had awakened, something born not of conquest, but of loyalty remembered, and when humanity remembers, the stars themselves take notice. The serene beauty of SciFi-Prime's ocean seemed eternal, yet the quiet could not last. Across the edge of the system, strange energy readings blinked in the scanners of Ral 10's ship. The signals were small at first, brief rhythmic pulses, but consistent. They traced a pattern he had seen in old military archives, a fleet in formation. He reported it immediately to Ambassador Lynn Adebayo. Lynn's face remained calm, but her eyes sharpened as she examined the data. The Dravic Dominion has found us, she said quietly. They've been monitoring the Saralan transmissions for decades, waiting for an opportunity to test our loyalty. Ral 10's eyes widened. Test your loyalty, but why? What can they gain? Power and control, Lynn replied. They think loyalty is weakness. They do not understand that it is strength. As the two watched, the first ships appeared over the outer moons of SciFi-Prime. They were sleek, dark vessels, triangular in shape, designed for intimidation and speed. Their sensors scanned the planet carefully. The Saralons, who had grown used to peace, watched the sky in fear. Alert the Council, Lynn instructed. We need every precaution ready. Ral 10 sent messages across the planet. The Saralan defense systems began their emergency protocols. Drones lifted from the surface, shields activated over major cities, and civilians were guided to protective zones. But the historian knew that no technology alone could stop what might come. The humans, Ral 10 murmured. They could have avoided this entirely. Why do they care so much for the Saralons? Lynn did not answer immediately. She gazed at the horizon, where the dark fleet glinted in the starlight. Because a promise is more than a word. We act when loyalty is threatened. Always. On the surface, the Saralons looked to the sky with worry and hope. For centuries, they had survived on faith that the Terrans would remember them. Now that faith was about to be tested. Then a bright flash appeared above the planet. Ralton's eyes widened as sensors picked up hundreds of new ships emerging from hyperspace. Human vessels, long thought missing from history, fully operational and armed with advanced defensive technology. Impossible, he whispered. These ships, they're ancient, Lynn smiled faintly. Ancient, yes, but preserved, maintained, and waiting for the right moment to honor an old promise. The humans did not hail the Saralons immediately. They formed a precise defensive ring around the planet. Every ship, every crew member acted with purpose, not for conquest, not for gain, but for protection. Ralton felt his breath catch. This is incredible. They've been watching all along, Lynn nodded. We do not intervene without reason, but when a promise calls, we answer. The Dravic Dominion's fleet, confident at first, was met with coordinated defense measures unlike anything in their records. The human ships moved like a single organism. Energy shields formed layers of protection around Saralon cities. Drones and support craft flew with astonishing precision, intercepting any attempt at aggression. Yet the humans did not strike to destroy. Every move they made was calculated to protect life, not take it. It was a show of loyalty in action, not force but responsibility. From orbit, Ralton recorded the event, knowing it would change the understanding of humans forever. Every action had purpose. Every shield, every maneuver was a testament to a centuries-old promise kept alive. On the surface, Lynn communicated with the Saralon leaders, her voice calm but firm. Stay calm. Evacuate only when instructed. Your people are safe. The Terrans have returned. High Speaker Enalara watched the fleet above and felt a mix of awe and relief. The monuments, the offerings, and the yearly messages had not been forgotten. They had been heard. Ralton turned to Lynn. This is why the Union does not understand your people. Loyalty like this is not in any strategy manual. Lynn's eyes sparkled with quiet pride. It is not strategy. It is who we are. We never leave those who trusted us behind. The historian could only nod, stunned. The Dravic Dominion attempted to press forward, misjudging the humans' purpose. Every strike they tried to land was absorbed or deflected. But even as their frustration grew, they could not comprehend why humans refused to retaliate aggressively. Commander Rhea Solari, the leader of the Terran Vanguard, appeared on the communications channel. Her voice was calm, resonant, and unwavering. Dravic Dominion, you are testing loyalty, but loyalty is not weakness. Leave SciFi-Prime, or we will defend it until your fleet cannot. The aftermath of the battle over SciFi-Prime left the stars unusually quiet. Shimmering debris floated in orbit, reminders of the fleeting chaos that had rippled across the system. But unlike other worlds that had seen similar attacks, SciFi-Prime did not tremble with fear. Instead, its citizens stood in awe, whispering among themselves about a strange, unexplainable force, the humans who had appeared from nowhere and defended them. Ralton observed it all from the orbiting observation platform. The Valari historian's hands hovered over his console as he recorded data, trying to make sense of what he had just witnessed. The Terran fleet, hundreds of ships strong, had emerged from hyperspace as if they had been waiting in the shadows. Every move they made was precise and purposeful. They did not attack recklessly. They protected civilians, secured transport corridors, and neutralized enemy strikes without unnecessary harm. Ralton whispered to himself, they fight differently, not for conquest but for life itself. In the control center of the Terran flagship, Commander Rhea Solari oversaw the operation with calm determination. Her voice was steady as she issued orders to dozens of sub-commanders. Divert to Sector 7. Evacuate civilian pods. Keep distance from non-combatant vessels. Loyalty first, precision always. Her crew moved like a single organism, coordinating maneuvers, shielding lives, and anticipating enemy movements. Nothing about their actions suggested panic or fear. Every human aboard the fleet seemed to understand one unspoken truth: an ally's life is their responsibility. As the Dravic Dominion forces realized what was happening, panic began to ripple among their ranks. They had anticipated an easy victory over SciFi-Prime, not a strategic, disciplined fleet of humans appearing from beyond the stars. From his station, Ralton could hardly believe his sensors. The Dravik ships were fast and heavily armed, yet the Terran fleet never aimed to destroy unnecessarily. Each encounter ended with the invaders retreating or being carefully redirected away from civilian areas. He recorded the patterns carefully. Every historian across the galaxy would find this remarkable, if not unprecedented. Back on SciFi-Prime, Lynn Adebayo coordinated with local authorities. She walked along the streets, calming frightened citizens and offering guidance. The humans did not demand recognition. They did not expect parades or titles. When a group of children approached her, curious and wide-eyed, she crouched down and smiled. You see, they didn't come because someone asked them to. They came because loyalty isn't optional for humans. When we promise to protect, we act, quietly, faithfully, and without expectation. One child, fascinated, asked, "Will they stay?" Lynn's smile was gentle but filled with weight. They never stay. But that doesn't mean they leave us alone. They always watch, always remember. The children looked at the distant sky, trying to imagine the invisible guardians watching over them. Raal-10's attention returned to the fleet's movements. He observed a communications relay transmitting a single calm message across the galaxy. No ally of Earth stands alone. He repeated it aloud, letting the words settle. The phrase was not a threat. It was not a warning. It was a promise. A simple truth that radiated through every human vessel, every signal, every calculated maneuver. As the Dravik fleet retreated, whispers spread across the galactic channels. Species who had been monitoring the battle in secret began reporting the same reaction: astonishment, disbelief, and a grudging respect for humanity. For the first time in centuries, Raal-10 realized the name humanity was no longer just a term for an obscure, distant species. It was a symbol. Loyalty made tangible, courage made deliberate, and protection made active. The Galactic Union, long neutral in conflicts like these, could not ignore the reports. Councils convened, and voices debated whether Earth should be censured for interfering or praised for its actions. Their discussions were long, bureaucratic, and unsure. Meanwhile, the Terran fleet was already disappearing from the Saralan system, leaving behind only the memory of their presence and the protection they had provided. Raal-10, still on his observation platform, felt the weight of what he had witnessed. The humans had appeared briefly, changed the tide of battle, and vanished. Yet their message remained. He turned to the Saralan High Speaker, who stood silently beside him. "How do you describe what just happened?" he asked. Anilara smiled faintly. "We describe it as the human way. Loyalty that cannot be measured, courage that cannot be bought, and friendship that cannot be broken." Raal-10 nodded. "Do all humans act this way?" She looked toward the stars. "They all have the potential. Some forget, some ignore. But the ones who remember, they remind the galaxy that loyalty is a force stronger than fear." Over the following weeks, stories of the Terran fleet spread quickly. Across systems, species whispered about the humans who had repaid a centuries-old promise. Scholars, historians, and ordinary citizens debated what it all meant. Some were afraid. Others were inspired. Many simply could not comprehend the quiet certainty of humans, a people who acted not for reward, but because a promise existed. Raal-10 documented everything. His reports were meticulous, detailing strategies, ship maneuvers, and the philosophy behind each decision. Every detail mattered, because the galaxy had never seen anything like this before. And then, a surprising development occurred. Several minor systems inspired by the humans' actions began forming alliances of trust, offering support to neighboring worlds regardless of profit or politics. It was subtle at first: small gestures, shared resources, protection agreements, aid missions. But Raal-10 knew the pattern. Humanity's actions had done more than save a single planet. They had sparked a movement. Meanwhile, Lynn Adebayo returned to her post aboard an orbital station above SciFi-Prime. She monitored communications, quietly observing the Dravik Dominion's retreat. She did not celebrate, nor did she boast. She simply ensured the Saralans were safe, knowing that Earth's presence, while powerful, was never permanent. She allowed herself a small reflection. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their loyalty and sense of justice created ripples far larger than any weapon. The galaxy often underestimated this. It had taken a battle and 1,000 small acts of courage to show what Earth's people could do. Ralten, now standing beside her, asked quietly, "Will the Union ever understand?" Lynn smiled. "Perhaps not immediately. Some lessons take time, but the stars remember, and so do we." From orbit, the monument on SCIFI-Prime appeared as a small glowing point. Its surface reflected the light of nearby moons. The inscriptions glowed faintly. "To those who stood for us when none else would. Humanity, the stars remember your kindness." Ralten looked at it and felt a deep sense of awe. He had read about loyalty in the archives, but seeing it in action, witnessing humans fulfill promises across centuries, was something entirely different. And in the quiet of space, among the drifting stars and the glowing oceans below, the Terran fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind a legacy that could not be erased. Weeks later, Ralten submitted his report to the Galactic Union Archive. He titled it simply, "Humanity, Loyalty that Transcends Time." The transmission went through Union channels, sparking discussions, debates, and curiosity across thousands of systems. Leaders and historians alike were forced to acknowledge the simple, undeniable fact: humanity acted differently. They remembered. They repaid. And when they did, the galaxy could not help but watch. Ralten looked up at the stars one last time before leaving SCIFI-Prime. Somewhere out there, far beyond the edge of known space, he could sense the humans, watching quietly. Guardians who kept promises across time, ready to repay loyalty whenever it was called upon. And in that moment, Ralten understood the truth. Loyalty was more than a word for humans. It was a force that moved planets, shaped decisions, and stunned the galaxy itself. The stars, it seemed, were no longer silent witnesses. They were witnesses to a people who would never forget a friend.